How Stoicism can help you live a better life. In human history, many people have suffered adversities such as plagues, wars, inequalities, and natural disasters that led them to prolonged suffering and even death. But that isn't limited to just history, as unexpected things happen all the time. From market crashes, death of proximate people, diseases, and much more. These adversities lead many to contemplate why it is happening, trying to deduce meaning and why it was specific to them. These are common mental trails that we have all walked on at least once in our lives. It is that victim mindset that makes people lose hope, which leads to exponential suicide polls. But what could we do about this? Interestingly enough, this question was answered over 2,000 years ago under a branch of philosophy called Stoicism. Hello, and welcome to Info Junkie TV, where you can always be sure to find mind-blowing videos that shows you everything that's out of the ordinary. Our aim is to bring you the most thrilling facts, everything interesting and rare that we find in this world of ours. In this video, we'll delve into the concept of Stoicism and how it can help us live a better, more purposeful life. If you want to tap into purpose and existential meaning, then you'll find this video transformative. However, in order to understand the subject at hand, we need to fathom the history behind it. In 304 BC, a merchant named Zeno met a Cynic and a Megarian philosopher who changed his mental trajectory. This encounter encouraged him to venture out and move to Stoa Poikile, or the painted porch, and that was the very location where Zeno and his disciples gathered to discuss and teach Stoicism. But what is Stoicism? Stoicism is the understanding that while we cannot control the events in our lives, we do have the power to control how we approach or react to it. Epictetus, an important philosopher of Stoicism, once said, "The things in our control are by nature free, unrestrained, unhindered, but those not in our control are weak, slavish, restrained, belonging to others. Remember then, that if you suppose that things which are slavish by nature are also free, and that what belongs to others is your own, then you will be hindered." We could be really excellent candidates for a job. We could fulfill all the requirements and succeed with flying colors. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that we will by default definitely get the job, because it is not our decision to make, and therefore it is out of our control. Historic Stoics, like everyone else, experienced adversity. However, instead of giving in to it and losing themselves there, they sought out the lessons and learned from it. During tough times, the number one stress factor is losing the sense of control over their circumstances and situation. However, just the fact that a person thinks that things are happening in respect to what he or she allows is a pretty dangerous mindset. It's only when balance is achieved by believing in a higher power that people could actually relieve themselves of the burden of thinking that their lives are in their control. This doesn't mean to be flimsy or like a leaf floating around. I believe to effectively stand in your power, you'll need to believe that a higher power is working through you, instead of serenading a to-me life stance, as that is the lower frequency. The Stoic Model is realistic and actionable to deal with the world as it is, through the pursuit of personal improvement in 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, temperance, justice, and courage. For instance, during a time when Roman laws considered slaves as property, Seneca called for their humane treatment and stressed that we all share the fundamental humanity. According to Epictetus, things like our body, wealth, and reputation aren't up to us. If the economy crashes or we're diagnosed with a disease, the only productive thing to do is manage and push through. The Stoic perspective is to not link our happiness to uncertain things. Linking your core happiness to uncertain things is a sure way to indicate that it will always feel like an emotional roller coaster, because that is where you placed your dependence. The law of attraction, which is also rooted in Stoicism, inspired many self-help books. This calls for you to know the following factors: vice, virtue, and indifference of anything that you sell or get paid for necessarily add value to our self-worth. Stoicism believes that as long as we have the basic needs to live, all these other attractive things shouldn't necessarily worry us. The more we are connected to these things, the angrier and more devastated we feel when we lose them. As the famous Greek philosopher once humorously said, "In a rich man's house, there's no place to spit but his face." To help ease his mind, zoom out and see life from a higher vantage point than his own, Marcus would often practice an exercise that is referred to as taking the view from above, or Plato's View. This exercise, which required envisioning all the billions of people around the world, farms, weddings and divorces, births and deaths, prompts us to take perspective and remind us how small we actually are. It helps to realign our focus on the things that are important. And as Stoic scholar Pierre Hadot put it, the view from above changes our value judgments on things. Luxury, power, war, and the worries of everyday life become ridiculous. Seeing how small we are in the grand scheme of things is only one portion of this exercise. The second, more subtle point is to tap into what the Stoics call sympathia, or a mutual interdependence with the whole of humanity. As the astronaut Edgar Mitchell, one of the first people to actually experience a real view from above, put it, in outer space, you develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. Take a step back from your own concerns and remind yourself of your duty to others. Take Plato's view. There are many correlations between Stoicism and Buddhism, especially in the idea of nirvana. Shiva Solomon, an important figure in Buddhism, once said, "Life is suffering. Stop identifying with emotions and remain analytical. Everything is just as it is." Epictetus also had a similar quote that says, "Suffering stems not from the events of our lives, but from our judgments about them." This concept of thinking analytically without the influence of emotions resonates strongly with modern psychology and the self-help movement, such as rational emotive behavioral therapy, which focuses on changing the self-defeating attitudes people form about their life circumstances. Ultimately, knowledge without application is obsolete. Marcus Aurelius often kept a journal on him. In it, he not only reminds himself of important Stoic lessons, but would also scold himself when he realizes that he has failed to incorporate this teaching into his life in some particular manner. Stoicism suggests that in order to really focus on what you want to do and cope with external problems, you must constantly remind yourself that you're going to die. Stoicism has a practice that is called Memento Mori. This practice literally means meditating on death. It helps to cancel out anything that might be distracting you in your pursuit of success. Meditating on your own mortality is only depressing if you miss the point. The Stoics find this thought invigorating and humbling. It is not surprising that one of Seneca's biographies is titled "Dying Every Day." After all, it is Seneca who urged us to tell ourselves, "You may not wake up tomorrow when going to bed, and you may not sleep again when waking up," as reminders of our mortality. Or, as another Stoic, Epictetus, urged his students, "Keep death and exile before your eyes each day, along with everything that seems terrible. By doing so, you'll never have a base thought, nor will you have excessive desire." Use those reminders and meditate on them daily. Let them be the building blocks of living your life to the fullest and not wasting a second. Seneca also once famously said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." When Seneca died, he was quite accepting of it and found it calming. He once said that death is a release of and an end of all pains. Beyond it, our suffering cannot extend. It restores us to the peaceful rest in which we lay before we were born. If anyone pities the dead, he ought also to pity those who have not been born. In short, we all have to go through tough times and hardships to reach our goals. We shouldn't be constrained by fear to not be able to experience everything. Worrying about the future won't necessarily change anything, but cause you more stress and agony. While hard times are bitter and unpleasant at times, they're also a gateway for us to become more grateful and humble about life. It makes us count our blessings while simultaneously working on the future. To do that, you have to identify what is truly essential in your life while getting rid of what isn't. If you're really interested in Stoicism, we recommend several books that will further your understanding of it. Discourse by Seneca, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and Letters from a Stoic are all great books that are easy and fun to read. Thank you, Infomaniacs, for tuning in and watching this video. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications bell to be notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional, or even better, all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Info Junkie TV, and we'll see you real soon.